Good evening, everybody. To start with, a recent report by Deloitte on the future of work marks that there is no waiting for a better time. The time to start humanizing the future of work is now. From survive to thrive, the COVID 19 pandemic indeed has been talked about as a time machine for the future. Workforce exhaustion and new life stressors heightened the awareness of matters like equity, justice, urgency to secure future employability through upskilling, reskilling, and so many other factors, determining what people want from work and their relationship with their employers. The peak moment of this accelerated change has created an imperative to consider the choices that we will face. Where do we want to go? How quickly? And how we will get there? Why is the desire for change so important? While every organization globally is facing and will face its sets of challenges and opportunities, of course, to accelerate forward, the destination is very clear: to humanize the future of work and to champion flexibility. A very warm welcome and again a very good evening on behalf of everyone at Anudip Foundation. I am Monita from the desk of PR and Corporate Communication. We welcome all of you to our very first episode of the Resilient Recruiters Live, our first employer talk show on workforce strategies that are built to champion flexibility. And we are so privileged to have with us Mr. Narendra Nerla, board member and COO of 𝗧𝗛𝗘 an solutions company based out of Andhra Pradesh. With more than 2 decades of its leadership experience, Mr. Nerla is an investor and advisor for New Aura, an agri-IoT startup, and also a strategic advisor for Edge Finishing School. He's been actively investing in startup ecosystems for the past 3 years and invested in agri, edtech, and the EV space. And we are so glad to see you in our virtual studio, sir. And I can see that already an enthusiastic pool of audience eager to hear you. And so before we started, we would love to hear more about you. Since we have you, we have the privilege to have your time with us, sir.
Thank you, Monita, and good evening, everyone. I know it's, like you said, this is the first one talk show for Anudip, and happy to be here. Thank you for that nice introduction. It's always good to hear from a lot of people about what we are doing at 𝗧𝗛𝗘 and in state of Andhra Pradesh. We are 𝗧𝗛𝗘. We are primarily working on managed services space. If someone wants to understand managed services, this is like a remote infrastructure management services that we do. And apart from remote infrastructure management, we also do expense management on telecom, cloud, utility side, and we also offer digital transformation services to multiple clients across the globe. And not, last one but not the least is the incubation as a service. So we, in fact, take the ideas from either our employees or from outside, and then incubate them as part of 𝗧𝗛𝗘. Use all our experience in helping them build the business and just pop them out, as separate entities. So I think in the last 4 or 5 years, we incubated 7 of them, and then I'm glad all of them are doing, decently well, irrespective of the kind of challenges we all saw. And during this journey, we all started in 2011 in 𝗧𝗛𝗘. That's a part of Andhra Pradesh, and been growing pretty stable over the last 10 years. And for any company to grow, I'll take a little more time to talk about how we've been growing, some in a place like 𝗧𝗛𝗘. For any company to grow, it's very important to have a strong ecosystem, and especially an ecosystem in hiring and training. That's where, I think every company struggle in hiring the right talent. And we keep talking about, the kind of skill gap that you have in the industry, and then how we will fulfill that. But as an organization, for example, 𝗧𝗛𝗘 as a company, which is now close to 400, and we will probably be a 500 by this year end. It's important that, we work with someone who is close to the, skill industry, who understand the market, and who also adapts to the new technologies. I think that's when Sudhakar, I'm sure, most of you guys at Anudip know Sudhakar. So
Of course.
Sudhakar and I started talking about how do we really get the benefit out of the scale that you have and the size Anudip has across the country. And Sudhakar, I think Prasoon is another guy who was talking to us, and it was I think because of the training methodologies, training state of art facilities that you guys have, we were able to build that partnership and then work together in building what we have right now. So especially I'm a very active guy in LinkedIn,
Okay.
and I saw a lot of activities that Anudip does, even in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So that's where we thought, we would definitely go along in the long run, and then how we can also collaborate and then work together, for our growth. That's very brief about what we're doing and how we are connected to Anudip.
Thank you so much. It's indeed a privilege to know more about Inspire Edge and how it's been growing over the years, and it's all the more privileged to hear about Anudeep from employers, rather as we branded the resilient recruiters like you all, about how we've been growing. And as our CEO often says that when we are outside the room, what people says that matters. So completely honored to have whatever you said about us, and we are very positive about moving ahead in this way, or of course with partnerships and supports from the
Yeah,
entire ecosystem. So moving ahead with the topic that we have, a very interesting one, that workforce strategies are built to champion flexibility. So before COVID-19, the largest disruptions to work involved new technologies, maybe growing trade links, etc. COVID-19 has, for the first time, uh, has elevated the importance of physical dimension of work. So this offers a different view of work rather than the traditional sector definitions. And the last 2 years, like since 2020, it has a lasting impact on the future of work, making it imperative for recruiters, CHROs, human resource managers, senior leaders to evaluate the immediate and the long term impact of these trends and the degree to which they will change strategic goals and plans. Chief, human resources of officers and personals, they often face historic challenges from an exhausted workforce and a highly competitive labor market. At the same time, this environment creates an exciting opportunity to lead talent into the future and, of course, differentiate their organizations as employers of choice. So, given this background, back to the post COVID era, as we may, fingers crossed, we may call it, what is the first change that you notice in the work culture?
yeah. I mean, it's a difficult one. I'm sure all of us went through that, and this is probably something that across the generations, we saw. And for most of the businesses, especially the COVID, right? For most of the businesses, like you rightly mentioned, it's a pre-COVID and post-COVID, and we're defining this as an era by itself. So that
Right.
defines the significance of that in any business. And when I step back and then look at what were we doing, in the pre-COVID era, that was a luxury, for a lot of companies, and then a lot of people had their own comfort in doing whatever they were doing. And the moment suddenly a crisis situation, like this happened, and the first few weeks to months was probably more of the ambiguity. You don't know the future. That's when people started realizing that's an opportunity. The moment there is a crisis, for a lot of businesses who look forward to doing, sustaining in the long run, will look at that as an opportunity. And I'm sure most of the ITES companies, fortunately we come from that, industry,
Right.
they saw this as an opportunity. How do we survive in something like this? And I'm sure, industry went back and looked at what was the biggest challenge we faced in the past. And I don't think they can have anything that is so close to COVID like situation, because the entire world had an impact like this.
Of course.
And so when we started looking at how do we actually handle something like this, And then how did we handle now in the post-COVID era, when we go back and look at how we can really take learnings out of this. One thing that comes very clear was the kind of flexibility that you give to the entire business model. you know Even if tomorrow if you have to close again, you know how to operate it, without any interruption. So over a period of time, I think that hybrid model, of operating, you know, evolved. And as per Gartner, this is going to stay. We work with Gartner very closely in understanding how we will go to the market in the next coming few years, and this is going to stay. And most of this model that evolve, some people call it remote, some people call it hybrid, because you have to manage both on-site and off-site, and some people call it global, you know right? So irrespective of the name, this is all about the flexibility that you're giving to the employee. So it's more employee centric, and then it's more flexibility to make sure that somewhere you will have someone working irrespective of the location. I think that one thing that will definitely evolve, the flexibility for an employee in terms of working, flexibility in terms of even working hours, for example, and then flexibility in hiring. I'm sure when we had to hire people in on-site, there would be some limitations that you can't hire a housewife because they have some limitation in terms of working from office, or you can hire some students. So now imagine the kind of market it opened up because of this hybrid model and the flexibility that companies adapted. You can hire anyone across the globe. And for example, my team right now, even though we were majority of us were based in Vizag, in the pre-COVID era, now I have teams working in Hyderabad, Bangalore, tier two cities like Coimbatore, Kochi, Kakinada, villages like Kollipara, and the remote village from Andhra Pradesh. I have 6, 7 guys working out of it, and I have teams working in London, UK, and Canada, US. So it's a very distributed model only because of this flexibility that companies opened up. That comes very striking in the post-COVID era.
Thank you, sir. So that's a great insight. So, as I would like to take the quote from you, call it a distributed model or a disrupted model. So it's evident that the nature of office is, forever evolving. And so there is no set blueprint for workspace strategies. So realizing that it is vital not to hamper the changing requirements of like today's workforce in distributed wherever they're working, and best to adapt, to be adaptive, along with the necessary support like infrastructures. Like companies today are making significant changes in their workspaces in the new normal and beyond. So they are often re-engineering the office structure for better communication, ideation, creation, and execution. So what do you think that organizations like why do you think that organizations should redesign the workplace layout to maximize their outcome, given the distributed model, as you rightly quoted, that we are going through right now?
Yeah. Uh, See, all of us know, that the hybrid model is going to stay. And as per Gartner, I would quote one of the survey from Gartner: close to 60% of the employment, who are at least three years and above experienced, will continue to work from home or continue to be remote. So if you're really building a 1,000 member team, and then your 60% is not in your campus, so you don't need a workplace that caters to your own complete employment,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's when you need to start looking at how do you bring all your real estate into the right purpose, right? And then how do you minimize or optimize your real estate spend, even though you're not going to save completely. For example, if you see Infosys, as an example, they recently announced that they want to go to a tier 2 city, instead of building campuses only in tier 1. That's a pure reaction to the current situation where employees are not ready to go back to a tier 1 city, because of whatever the flexibility that they got, and then whatever the job market they are in right now. So you have to distribute your workplace in such a way that it's closer to the employees, their native place or the place where they are now getting comfortable. I think that's the biggest one. And this is also more important because almost 40% of these employees who are working remote, if you ask them to come back to office, they will switch a
Right.
job. So I think that as a company, we would rather go invest in another place which is closer to an employee than focusing on building a huge workplace in one area. So that concentrated workplace model is slowly moving away from the company's directions. That's very important.
Right, sir. So, as you said a couple of minutes back about the hybrid model and how things are shifting. So, I just read an article just before the session by Linda Grattan in her blog, how to do hybrid right in the HBR, which says that place is the axis that's getting the most attention at the moment. And in a recent report in 2022, HBR reads out that according to the recent survey of more than 32,000 workers from nearly 17 countries, nearly two-thirds of today's workforce would consider looking for a job change, which you rightly quoted just now. And
Right.
economies, bouncing back from COVID-19 and work from home options have made it more easier to quit unappealing positions and look for alternatives, driving up wages, of course. So, as hybrid work transitions from a temporary pandemic era band-aid to the normal way of working, many leaders are wondering how they would build an inclusive hybrid culture. So, when it comes to embracing the new model, the hybrid model, what are some of the pain points like that needs to be addressed by the leadership bench?
Yeah. I know it's a challenging one, right? We're all learning out of the pandemic, and we're all learning out of the crisis that put us into. Hybrid is relatively new for all of us, even though remote working was there for quite some time, but it was mostly consultants and freelancers that were doing the remote working. But whereas the post pandemic, your core employees also work in remote locations. So retaining them, right, like you mentioned, 60-70% of the population would look for an alternate job. So
Right.
retaining them, in an off-site environment is going to be a huge challenge. And that's where the leadership has to put their best, focus. For example, we'll take an example of Inspirate. So I have the leadership again distributed between Hyderabad, Vizag, Chennai, and also in Canada. So, and fortunately for us, this is the leadership that was there, from last 7-8 years. So it was a core, team that helped us to grow, and then I can't afford to lose them. So the kind of flexibility that we offer them, the kind of opportunities, and then support that we give them beyond, the just a job environment, will enable us to stay with us, stay close to the entire goal. I think one common goal that will drive a lot of these discussions, and then a lot of these retentions is when you have a common vision of working towards a company goal is also, if your common goal, then that's easy for us to retain them. But but when it comes to the managers and then the ground level people, the biggest challenge is that in the hybrid environment, that connect with the core employment, the connect with the company is missing. And because in the pre-COVID era, you never had this as a challenge. Everyone was coming to office, your people and culture team, and then your core frontline managers were always in front of them, talking to them, understanding their pain areas, guiding them, mentoring them, everything that they were doing, and they were the only source of feedback for them. Whereas the post-COVID, all the employees, when they start working, remotely, they kind of become independent, right? So they have a source of information coming from multiple areas, and they have access to a bigger opportunity area outside. That is challenging the frontline managers. So if I put this together as an opportunity area or as a challenge, you know, frontline leadership takes a lot of pain right now from the hybrid environment because they have to manage these people who are the core, ground level employees who are driving the everyday, day to day in work. So that is crucial. And unless we train the frontline leaders, to mentor these people, to build that relationship with these employees, it's going to be a humongous task for any company to either retain the employees but also to manage day-to-day business. So I know we will continue this conversation in a different form, but when I understood this challenge, so we looked at this in couple of other angles. One is you'll find more tenured employees, who actually saw the industry, who worked in an offline environment. They will have more ownership. Most of them, I'm sure you have exceptions in every area. So most of them, we saw take ownership and then be responsible, and then they do their work without any interruptions. But if it is someone who is not that experienced, maybe a 2 years, 3 years guy, you need a lot of mentoring, you need a lot of coaching. They will get distracted, easily because they're
Right.
just into the market, and then it takes time for them to understand what is the real motivation for them. So that's where you need a lot of mentoring, and the hybrid model makes it more difficult for frontline leaders to mentor them because they're remote.
Absolutely, right. Very correctly pointed out, sir. So I think this is the pain which all the leaders across all industries right now
Yeah.
are facing. So, having said that, recently in an article by Gartner again, since you've quoted Gartner twice, it read that 16% from a survey they have done of the employees were frequently using technologies to monitor the employees through methods like virtual clocking, checking in, checking out, tracking work computer usages, monitoring employee emails, internal communications, chats, etc. Some companies track productivity and other monitors employee engagement and, of course, well-being to better understand how they are experiencing, especially in this particular model. So the technology used in day-to-day business practices evens the playing field for employees working in different regions across the globe, making productivity location agnostic. So since tech now is a big game changer, how do you think that it will play a very, very critical role in the transition to flexible working practices?
Yeah, I mean, we can't think of doing a hybrid model without technology involvement. Um, I think I know most of us would have used Zoom during the pandemic. I think that's the first step of yeah, technology usage during the remote environment.
Right,
We
right.
never saw Zoom adoption picking up that rapid, in any other scenario. And then that actually drove a lot of other startups, and then big companies picking up that area and then building collaboration tools. And that is very crucial in a hybrid environment. You will have a virtual team, really working together, irrespective of their location they are in, using a collaboration tool. Use Slacks of the world, and then Teams of the world, Hangouts, and you name many Flow. I'm sure we can pick more names than this entire conversation. Those many collaboration tools actually happened over the last 3 4 years, and but they gained a lot of traction only in the last 1 year 2 years. And those right usage of the collaboration platforms, even though a lot of companies pick collaboration platforms, unless you have a right team, you're configuring it, and then channelizing the communication to the right teams, it's not going to be helpful. So those collaboration tools played a very crucial role in, and they will play, a very important role for a successful hybrid model. And if I quote an example of Inspire, we were planning because we had some consultants and then freelancers working. We thought we could do a Slack, even a pre-COVID time, but we had our own comfort of implementation timelines. But the moment we know that we had to pick something, and it only took a week for us to get on Slack, the entire organization. And I think without any of those, you will have a zero visibility on what's happening. So any of these technology tools should help you get that visibility in what's happening with every team. You know, I'm not a personal advisor of tracking an employee email or
Right.
employee chat, but official communication tools like Slack or MS Teams are open. There is no personal or there's no sensitive information in any of these collaboration tools, but definitely not a you know tracking an employee activity at the back end or tracking an employee email. Maybe it's a spur of a movement for any company to try doing it, but I don't think they will be in the long run. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
like we discussed, employees also during the COVID situation went through a struggle. And then
Right.
if you remember, most of the companies adopted this employee wellness programs during the pandemic and then post pandemic. And I mean, it's great effort from entire ITS fraternity, especially the employees. They took up the challenge of working remotely and then surviving on the businesses. So I don't think it's fair for us to go and then monitor them at the
Of
personal level
course.
and then at the email.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right, right, absolutely. So, with this ever evolving new ways to work and strategies, it's becoming more vital for the leadership to set some overarching standards concerning the workspace, expectations from the employees, productivity, access to their technology, as you rightly said, and of course the functions. So, regaining the business momentum, the primary goal is to boost productivity irrespective of any sphere you work. So while employees have also realized that it is feasible to be productive in alternative work modes while managing fatigue caused by long durations of working from home is also a challenge. So given
yeah,
the blurring lines between office and home due to flexible working practices, what is the role of leadership to ensure a clear cut work balance and address issues for example, digital fatigue or burnout?
yeah. I know these words, keep coming up, and we try to understand these words about work-life balance. But, historically, it's all about our personal discipline. I'm not trying to avoid this, conversation, but let me step back a bit and then talk about what work-life balance really was, even in, the pre-industry era. So when there was a guy going to office and coming back home, he probably don't have a communication channel to really think, talk about office work, but it's
Right,
his mind that he can still think about what happened in the company and then how do I handle it tomorrow, right? And then you have a telephone came in and then someone is calling you from office and then talking about the work, and then that's probably coming to your drawing room, because your telephones, most of them are in drawing rooms. And then you have a mobile that came to your bedroom and then someone is calling you and then talking to you about the work, and then you are handling that in your bedroom. So tomorrow maybe something else will come and then you'll still talk, right? But it's not about the communication channel, it's not about the hybrid model. It's about the leadership, or it's about ourselves as an employee. If I decide that I will not think more than what I could do at work, maybe I will get a better work life balance. And even as a leader, as a company, if we have a better planning, that I shouldn't be really worrying about the guy who already left for the day, to think about what do I do next, than
right.
what the people on the floor. I know it's easy to say than actually doing it, but that's the practice that irrespective of these technology advancements, the leadership has to drive. I mean, there are a lot of leaders who quoted the, working in 9 to 6 environment, or working 8 hours, 9 hours is mandatory. We shouldn't be working beyond that. But it's a practice. Over a period of time, an employee or employer has to work together. You know, I'll give you a lot of examples that employees do it. In fact, I was when at the, you know, probably 3 4 years of my career, at the beginning of my career, I used to love doing it, beyond my work hours, because that's what interested me to do and learn more. But if I continue to do that and then get into a personal situation where I'll miss my, personal life, yes, definitely I have to step back and then review how do I manage my time. And I
Right.
think a lot of leaders, right now, I do a lot of leadership assessment and help our leaders and mentoring them. How do they, manage their time? The biggest challenge for them is managing their time in those 8 hours. The moment do you learn that and you plan in doing it in 8 hours, I think that's the perfect scenario. But there is no perfect scenario in the current world, and people tend to get into additional time because of their own interest, because their other dependencies that they want. and
Right.
and part of the hybrid models, you know the work life balance tweaking is more because the focus on the work gets disturbed because there are a lot of other things that you do at home. So your core 8 hours is not actually your 8 hours. You probably get pulled by your kids or your parents, your family members to do something else, right? That's when you need to. It's very important in a hybrid model where you're working from home to create an environment that will enable you to work for your 8 hours effectively. I think by doing that, it's more of a self-discipline, like we spoke some time back. By doing
Right.
that, you can definitely minimize that challenge on work-life balance, and it's more of personal effort than anything else. That's what I think.
Sure, sir. Noted. All the points noted and very correctly identified. So, having said that, so a number of surveys, and studies, though we know that, as you all already quoted, that hybrid is going to stay, and that's what all the expertise are, commencing. But a number of surveys in the last few, of course, 2 years, substantiated this idea. And anecdotally, I have heard so many people saying the same, that productivity increases with remote work. But again, FaceTime has its own charm. So, for example, InspireEdge has recruited freshers. Anudip alumni are freshers who do
Yeah,
not have a corporate background, who come from diverse background across locations. So,
right.
for them, do you think the power of FaceTime will work best? Who are freshers or who are from entirely diverse backgrounds? So, do you think that will work? I mean, which, according to you, is going to best suit them?
See, if it's always, I mean, my personal opinion is that now working from office is the best option for them, because if even if not working from home, maybe in a pandemic situation like that, the FaceTime, on a video call will make a huge difference in how we are mentoring and then training people. And at InspireEdge, we have a policy that now everyone with less than 2 years of experience has to come to office.
Right.
So we will only hire people who can come to office, because for them, when they come to office, you have a lot of support system available on the floor, and then it's easy for them to learn. If let's imagine if there's a fresher sitting at home and then trying to get help, the every time he has to be on a call, and then it's not necessary that the team lead or the manager is available for him all the time. If it is on the floor, there's so much of other help that they take. And when you are with your colleagues, your learning will be 2x and 3x. And especially when you're mentoring them, you will know how they're responding to you when you see them
Absolutely.
on a face. you know Compared to someone talking to you on telephone, you don't know how the other guy is responding and reacting to your comments. So for us, I uh, we have made it mandatory to have any fresher, any training team members to come to office even during internships.
Exactly. So, very, very well put, sir. We really love the one that you mentioned about the policy at your organization, which students, I mean, freshers who are just about to enter the career tunnel are mandated to come to office. That's what make them feel, as you while we started the discussion, you spoke about the goals. If an employee, every employee, like for example in Anudip, we have got a shared organizational responsibility. That's how our leaders, our CEO wants it to have it. So of course, having the freshers or ones who are just about to enter the career tunnel, beginning of their career tunnel, if they come and see what a typical work structure looks like, I think that's the way. Of course, we are noting everything, and we do have a lot of questions from the audiences right now. In the interest of time, I do not know whether it will be, whether it will be wise to take that. But of course, I can take one of the questions because I've
Yeah.
been hearing. I mean, so. Okay, so someone from Tamil Nadu has wants to hear from you that uh, if your workforce gets spread across geographies in this hybrid model of work, how can you strengthen your business? How can you strengthen your work culture? And how can you create collaboration?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, like we spoke, it was not easy, when we had, all the people and culture teams and then employee engagement teams working on the floor, and then every employee working on the floor. It was an ideal situation for you to do anything and everything with them because you have them with you under your control. But in the hybrid model, everything that we were doing, now we moved them to a collaboration platform. So tech plays a very, very important role. For example, let's take this talk show. I don't know if Anudeep ever tried doing a online only, talk show before, COVID, right? So you picked up a technology that will enable you to continue doing, whatever, we were trying to do. Is it effective? It will take time for us to get better in these platforms. So we did the same thing with employee engagement activities, and then making sure that we have these teams connected well. Uh, I'll give an example. Every Thursday we have a online quiz that goes out to all the employees. It's a fun quiz. There's nothing to about the
Okay.
work. So for an hour, we have everyone in the teams. There's a channel called Beyond Work. So
Okay.
in that channel, you will not talk about anything about work. So they can put jokes, they can just get on a call, talk about something, they can have a coffee together virtually. You're using that as a virtual platform instead of actually sitting in office and then trying to do it. But the question is it really effective? Definitely not. So we have to, continue evolve and continue to ideate on how we can actually do some of these. So before COVID, we had these annual events coming in where employees come together and celebrate. Now we have a remote event every quarter. Then we have a reward program where employees come in, talk about their experience. New employees talk about how the onboarding happened for them, and managers come and talk about their way of handling this kind of a pandemic. I think that over communication in multiple channels is very, very crucial in maintaining that kind of connectivity. And thanks to all these collaborative platforms, and thanks to all the virtual meeting platforms that will enable you to do some of these things, to keep doing these things. Are they enough? Like I said, it's evolving. Hybrid model itself is evolving. And then we
Right.
have more, instead of doing an annual event, what we did is we had a leadership, offsite we did recently. And that was probably after 2 3 years we did. uh, Probably we will try to split them between multiple areas and multiple places, and then trying to connect, because I'm from a old school. I still think personal meeting is more effective, or at least the video meeting is more effective than just a call. So it's the same applies to our employee engagement activities. Whatever we are doing right now, whatever we were doing in the pre-COVID, we're doing it all of them in the collaboration platforms. So I'll give you another example of employee birthday. It's a very important one for an employee, and we were celebrating that definitely with a cake and then a bouquet. Now we partnered with another company who can ship them certificate along with the plant,
Wow.
is happening. And This startup will take care of the sapling's maintenance for a year and then donate that to a farmer, after 1 year. So that's kind of a belongingness that will have for the employee also on a social cause. So these are the ideas that sometimes will probably put you into a right approach, but maybe those are not enough. So we have to learn from each other and see how can we make it more realistic and then more pre-COVID situation.
Right. Thank you so much for citing examples, real life examples of how things are moving on, how things are evolving. So, having said that, in the interest of time, we are almost at the end of the session. On behalf of everybody at Anudip, I would like to thank you so much for sharing your insights, and we would definitely get in touch soon. And thank you for partnering with Anudip. Thank you for making our graduates feel so empowered. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking out time. So, what we conclude from the insights that we receive from the resilient recruiter's life is redefining the human dimension of work in today's world of perpetual disruption is a continuous process without any single entry point. It is a way of transforming and as you may call it, it is a way of transforming and evolving with strategic focus on work and the organization's goal. It
Yeah.
requires all of us to think and work differently, to constantly challenge the work orthodoxies of the past. So, gone are the days where we are taught that burning the midnight oil is inherently the positive thing and showing up early or staying late would be the norm. Together, we must work to undo these institutionalized prejudices and biases that we have. Our founders often say that it's time to move from concept to action and to focus on the path towards thriving, not just merely surviving. By shifting the way we think about work, focusing on architecting work as a flow and using technology to elevate human capabilities, we can unleash the human potential. So this is the opportunity. And as Sir rightly said, the future is designed around the human dimension of work, unleashing energy and endless possibilities of what humans, working productively can do. And it's been never been seen before. Importantly, as to end with, as our CEO often quotes, striking a balance between privacy and collaboration is the key. Thank you so much, everybody. I would like to thank Mr. Narendra Nerla once again for taking out time for Anudip Foundation. We would be again back live with the second episode of the Resilient Recruiters from across the industry. Thank you and have a great weekend ahead. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.